the Australian outback, known for its vast red plains and scorching heat. But despite its desolate and inhospitable reputation, this remote part of the world is home to a rich diversity of life. Low-growing shrubs and trees scatter across much of the landscape, and in some areas, large forests and precious oases can be found, providing critical food and shelter for all manner of wildlife. Mulga trees are often one of the pivotal foundations of such habitats. Their silvery leaves aren't actually leaves as such, rather flattened leaf stems, known as phyllodes, which are more efficient at retaining their moisture. In times of drought, they're dropped to the ground, enriching the surrounding parched and impoverished soils. Commonly found nearby are these large crater-shaped mounds, all neatly encased with mulga phyllodes. At first glance, you might think these structures were some kind of bird's nest, but they actually belong to much smaller and mysterious creatures, Mulga ants. During the day, you might find a few here and there, but to really see them in action, we'll have to come back after dark. One by one, the ants begin venturing out from their nests in search of any phyllodes within reach. When they find one they like, they'll carefully sling them underneath their bodies. Now it's time to head back to their nest. Here in the outback, nighttime temperatures are usually quite low, so the mulga ants can only move slowly and sporadically, sometimes stopping completely to take little breaks along the way. Once they finally reach their nest, the phyllodes are then thatched in amongst all the others. This pile of debris raises both the height and strength of the nest's outer walls, helping protect their home from eroding away to the outback's dry searing heat and heavy flooding rains. Neighbouring the mulga ants, another ant colony are also hard at work, and they too are reinforcing their home, but not in a way that you'd expect. These are meat ants, and they're trying to return back to their nest. But there's a bit of a problem. After dark, these ants will sometimes cluster themselves together at their nest entrances. Their large sturdy heads create an almost impenetrable barrier. They do this to better defend themselves against rival ant colonies, especially nocturnal species like sugar ants. But these ants trying to get in here aren't rivals, they're actually fellow colony members. Well, it's too bad for them. They'll have to wait until sunrise before they're allowed back in. Once a new day begins, the entranceway is cleared and regular traffic slowly resumes. The meat ants are quite cold and sluggish at first, but with the rapidly rising warmth of the sun, it's not long before they spring back into action. Their network of highways stretch far throughout the undergrowth, quickly leading them to the discovery of food and new nesting grounds to help nourish their ever-expanding empire. As the day draws on, temperatures can reach scorching levels, and most animals begin to seek out the shade. Isopods can be seen swarming the landscape in their thousands, finding refuge beneath rocks and logs, and within the little crevices of the sun-baked earth. But others aren't so shy of the sun. Tree Goannas happily embrace it. Growing up to 2 meters in length, from head to tail, they're one of Australia's largest lizards. Despite their massive size, as their name suggests, tree goannas are exceptional climbers. They have huge, sharp claws, which can easily dig in to even the smoothest of surfaces. To help maintain their balance, they use their long muscular tails, wrapping them around the tree as they ascend. even heavy gusts of winds hardly seem to faze their efforts. They'll spend much of their time up here, sitting motionlessly and basking in the sun. Each lizard is covered with their own unique variation of spots and stripes. These intricate patterns help them blend in amongst their surroundings, a good survival strategy to prevent themselves being spotted by predators, like the equally large and carnivorous wedge-tailed eagles, one of the few animals which can treat even fully grown goannas as prey. Tree goannas are also carnivores, and they'll go after almost anything they can fit within their mouths, from small mammals like possums to other reptiles like shinglebacks, and even birds too. They have these long forked tongues which they periodically flail into the air, similar to that of a snake. This helps them triangulate minute odours within the air, like those belonging to prey. Their camouflage, combined with their slow, methodical movements, aids them in ambush. But this one's been detected by the sharp eyes of these apostle birds. The birds may have a nest within reach, and if it's found, the giant lizard will quickly raid and consume every last egg within. So they do everything they can to ward off the intruder. But they have to be extremely careful. Tree goannas have sharp teeth which point inwards. One wrong move could turn them into a violently quick meal. Unfortunately for the goanna, there's seemingly no eggs to be found here, and they've had more than enough of these pesky apostle birds. Now it's on to the next tree, where they might find some better luck. Springtime in the Australian outback, and the arid red earth begins to burst to life with a bloom of colourful wildflowers, each one as stunning and vibrant as the next. Huge flocks of migratory butterflies swarm the land, eagerly feeding upon the flowers' sweet nectar. On this single tree, hundreds of them emerge from their chrysalises. After hatching, they spend some time just hanging around, waiting for their wings to fully inflate and harden. Then they're off to spend their short lives within the air. These butterflies are important pollinators, but equally as important is their part within the food chain. Many animals feed upon both the butterflies and their young in the form of caterpillars. But this particular caterpillar isn't so easy to get at. They cover themselves in small twigs and debris, which they secure around their bodies with a lining of silk. If they sense danger, like a passing bird, they'll quickly duck into their twig-laden homes and patiently wait until the threat passes. Lugging around this prickly portable home can be a little troublesome at times. To maneuver themselves around, they need to partially leave their armour, revealing 3 pairs of short but powerful legs, which they use to haul themselves forwards. While usually found up in the trees, munching on leaves and lichens, they'll drop to the ground like this in search of new feeding territory. As they go, their casing acts as a convenient buffer from the baking hot sand. These caterpillars can live within these cases for up to 2 years before eventually pupating and emerging as an adult case moth. Most other caterpillar species aren't this well defended, often falling victim to predators, like this sand wasp. She's a specialist caterpillar hunter. In anticipation of a kill, she digs out a burrow, using her large mandibles to break off clumps of sand, and then scooping them up with her forelegs. Once it's deep enough, she'll seek out a victim and inject them with a venomous stinger, which quickly causes paralysis. While these wasps mostly feed on nectar, sometimes they'll take a small taste. The goal isn't to feed themselves here, but rather their offspring. Their plan is to lay an egg inside the caterpillar and then bury them within their freshly dug burrow. Once their egg hatches into a larva, it will then eat the caterpillar from the inside out and eventually emerge as a new wasp. Unfortunately for this wasp, these ants have other ideas. With multiple ants present, the wasp chooses to play it safe, abandoning her fresh catch and avoiding any potential injuries. This fly-hunting sand wasp was a little more fortunate. After digging out her burrow, then capturing and paralysing her not-so-fortunate victim, she managed to slowly drag them underground. Only just in time too, with those bothersome, ever-vigilant ants lurking around her doorstep. Last stage now is to fill the hole over, and her job's done. Whilst most ants rely on calling for reinforcements to overwhelm their victims or steal the meals of other predators, these pony ants are a little different. Similar to the sand wasps, they tend to be more solitary in nature, venturing off from their nests alone and frequently travelling great distances in search of food. They've also retained their stingers from their wasp ancestors, and so they too can envenomate their victims, like this poor caterpillar here. With her prey immobilised, now comes the difficult part, lugging them all the way back home. From the perspective of the ant, these small plants are like a dense jungle. Back at the nest, her sisters are also hard at work, busily excavating their colony's network of tunnels and chambers. Inadvertently, this regular activity cycles and enriches the surrounding soils, helping neighbouring plant life thrive. Pony ants also collect and carry seeds down within their nests. Those which aren't consumed will be within an ideal environment to germinate and eventually spring to life. Many plants rely on this relationship with ants to survive and spread across the landscape. Birds are also crucial seed dispersers. After consuming them, they take to the air and travel great distances before eventually excreting the seeds into new areas. One of the most vital of these birds is the emu. Flowers, insects, seeds and fruits make up much of their diet. The fruits are eaten whole, which usually results in keeping the delicate seeds within intact. So after they eventually come out, they have a good chance of germinating. If these fruits were eaten by smaller birds and mammals, they may not be so lucky. Once fully grown, emus can stand nearly 2 meters tall and weigh around 60 kilograms, making them one of the largest birds on Earth. Their wings have shrunken to the point where they've long lost the ability to fly. Instead, they rely on their long muscular legs to carry them vast distances across these unforgiving lands. Emus adopt this nomadic lifestyle from almost the moment they're born. They hatch with their eyes open, can walk upright almost immediately, and are completely feathered, initially having this distinctive stripy plumage, helping them stay hidden from predators. After a few months, they lose their stripes and slowly begin to resemble their parents. The father emu is their sole guardian, and his young are completely reliant upon him for guidance and protection. They follow along closely around him, taking note of which things he chooses to eat and which he avoids. If he ever senses a threat, he'll posture up his body and produce these deep rumbling sounds. A clear warning to intruders to keep their distance. After 6 months or so, the young will have gained their independence. Sometimes they'll stick together as a family for a while longer, but eventually they venture off on their own. Emus are extremely hardy animals, perfectly adapted to the harsh Australian wilderness. On especially hot days, they start panting to cool down, and their shaggy-looking feathers grow quite loose and fluffy, blocking the heat from reaching their skin, whilst keeping them insulated and warm during the cold outback nights. They can also survive long periods without food, although within this baking environment, not too long without water. When they do come across it, they tend to drink in huge quantities, sometimes consuming 12 litres or more within a single sitting. What little water can be found here in the outback attracts a flurry of activity. Birds gather by their thousands. Some just stop for a quick drink. While others stick around to hunt and feed. Herons stalk the shallows, striking at small fish with sudden precision. Other birds prey upon the abundant insects and mollusks found along the water's edge. And species like these black swans dive beneath the surface, pulling up aquatic plants to nourish both themselves and their hungry young. Overlooking all the action, predatory kites circle high above, keeping the birds below on constant alert. From the tiny welcome swallows to the much larger pelicans, birds of all shapes and sizes are drawn to these vital oases. One of the most renowned of birds is the Galahs. These strikingly colourful parrots are extremely social, commonly seen flying together in huge flocks of hundreds of individuals. Their chorus of calls can be deafening as they pass through. Their genders can easily be identified by looking at their eyes. Males and the younger birds have dark brown eyes, whereas the females have more of a reddish pink. Galahs form lifelong bonds with their partners. One of the ways they show each other their affection is by nuzzling and grooming. Another iconic bird is the Willy Wagtail. They can often be seen along the shoreline, darting back and forth whilst flicking their tails, their goal being to flush out and consume any insects which may be hiding close by. Although only small, these charismatic birds can become highly territorial over their feeding grounds, actively harassing much larger birds like this raven. The Willy Wagtail acts as more of a nuisance than any real threat, but in this case, it's enough to encourage the raven to move on. Then it's back to business. Nearby, some kangaroos begin to arrive, a mother and her baby, known as a joey. The joeys live within their mother's pouch for several months, where they're kept safe and warm. During this time, the majority of their diet consists of their mother's milk, but as they mature, they'll begin poking their heads out to explore the world, drinking water and nibbling at any vegetation within reach. But fighting off all these annoying flies has made the joey rather sleepy. Time to tuck in for a nap. Other mammals, like these wild roaming goats, are a common sight. Originally, they were introduced to Australia by European settlers back in the late 1700s. But while not being native to this country, these agile and resilient animals are perfectly suited to these arid and rugged lands. They'll eat just about any plant matter that they come across, be it flowers or fruits, seeds, roots, and sometimes even bark and twigs. Often they can be seen licking rocks too, extracting important minerals like calcium and phosphorus. Their willingness to eat almost anything can quickly deplete protective ground cover, exposing the soil to the harsh elements and leading to erosion and desertification. They also compete with native species, consuming precious water and food supplies. With few natural predators around, these goats continue to spread across the landscape, their numbers reaching into the millions. Cows and sheep can also be found here in great numbers. They too are non-native species and also have a detrimental impact on the environment. These large hooved animals compact the soil as they pass, reducing its ability to retain moisture and to support future plant growth, further leading to desertification. They're also notorious for contaminating precious waterways with their droppings, which so many native inhabitants rely upon. Immense amounts of habitats are often cleared to allow them to graze, with long fences bordering these areas, some being impassable for nomadic animals like emus, limiting their ability to reach new territories and help disperse seeds across the lands. On top of this, cows are large emitters of methane, a potent greenhouse gas, worsening the effects of climate change, resulting in more prolonged drought periods and more intense fires and floods. Despite its many challenges, Australia's outback continues to sustain a remarkable array of life. From iconic birds, reptiles, and marsupials, to the much smaller and often overlooked creatures which call this place home. As the sun dips below the horizon, the day's intense heat begins to fade, and the outback rests once more, its resilience and beauty truly a sight to behold. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this brief look at just some of the wildlife I encountered while journeying through Australia's eastern outback. If watching this video has inspired you to visit this remote part of the country, please help conserve these lands. When you're on the roads, avoid driving after dark and during dusk and dawn, when many animals are at their most active. Sadly, I witnessed countless birds, reptiles, and kangaroos killed by traffic. And you can help reduce the damage of cows, sheep, and goats by ending the demand for them being here in the first place. I've said this before, but the most powerful action we as individuals can take to combat environmental destruction, like deforestation, species extinction, and climate change, is to stop supporting the farming of animals and choosing to live a vegan life. If we don't, thriving ecosystems, like the ones featured within this video, will slowly but surely diminish, species lost forever. Currently, Australia leads the world in the extinction rates of mammals. Even our iconic koalas are in serious decline. So please do your part for both the health of these lands and the future of our planet by becoming vegan today. Between writing, filming, and editing, this video took me a lot of time and effort to create. So if you did enjoy it, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and let me know in the comments below which one of the animals featured within this video was your favourite. For me, seeing Mulga Ants in action for the first time was a pretty special moment. Not only did I see them carrying the mulga phyllodes, but also carrying each other in a process known as social carrying. More on this behaviour in a future video, perhaps. As always, thanks so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.